All right. So a lot of people, when they have issues with things that they're experiencing in their fitness journey, right? Sometimes they don't know what to turn to, maybe what's the next best step to do, right? Like if you're having issues and like, is it go to the doctor? Is it go get some blood work done? What can you do to try to start figuring out some of these issues that you're having? And one that I've honestly learned here in the past 2 or 3 years is by using your body temp to kind of get a temp check essentially and see where things are at to kind of give you a general idea of how your metabolic health is. So today we're going to talk about the role of your body temperature as it relates to metabolic health. So all that you'll need to, kind of go through, through this process if you decide to try this is just a cheap, $5 or $10 thermometer from Walmart, the under the tongue kind. It's pretty straightforward from there. So um, Body temp, the way that I see things, is kind of a real time dashboard. So body temp, if you look at it from like an analogy, I'm always trying to use things that relate to people, right? Dashboard, speedometer, right? It's kind of showing you kind of what the speed of your metabolism is, right? It shows exactly how much fuel that you're burning, and then that's then turning into heat. So if you have a lower temp, like your body is essentially on battery save mode, right? It's not trying to burn a lot at all. T3 is going to be lowered to preserve energy during this time, especially during a time of stress, whether that be, low food, high cardio, high exercise output, life stressors, mental stressors, work stressors, things of that nature. The body is going to just pull T3 down to again preserve energy during a big stressor. Now, if we look at what is the actual link in between this, it's going to be the stress link. High cortisol is the stress hormone, as you guys all know. Your body is going to shift all of its attention into survival mode over straight out heat production. So again, like the body is always going to revert back in any situation of crisis to how can I survive this current moment in time, right? Your body doesn't know. Everybody likes to use the old analogy of, your body doesn't know if you're on, a deserted island with nothing to eat, or if you're just not eating anything at all, right? I mean, your body doesn't technically know where you're at, I guess, in any given time. It just knows the inputs that you're giving it, and it uses that data to then make decisions. So if we look at, what is a healthy temp range? So if you think about it, your body should warm up as the day goes on, right? As you get going during the day, as you eat food, your body's going to start producing heat as you, burn and start to use the food that you just eaten. It should go up, right? So if we look at your AM temperature, now this should be taken before that you even get out of bed. Just get out of bed. So to do this, you obviously need to have that thermometer right beside your, bedside, nightstand or whatever. As soon as you wake up, check your temperature, see where it's at. It should be at a bare minimum of 97.6. And again, you'll have to keep that thermometer on the nightstand if you want to do this. I've seen where there can be some variance in between, like if you get up, use your restroom, that kind of thing, wait 5 or 10 minutes, and that temperature is already being varied to some degree. So as soon as you wake up, use the thermometer, see what that temperature is, or write it down. And then if you look at the afternoon, that peak should be between 98.4 and 98.8. As the day goes on, your metabolism should ramp up, going along the day. So if you start out at 97.6 as your bare minimum, that afternoon peak should be, about a degree or two, well, not two, but a degree, give or take, zero point 0.2, degrees up or down, in that range. And then so if we're, and again, and you have to keep in mind that what we're doing this for is to measure metabolic output. So we're looking specifically at, not maybe not specifically at, but we're looking from signs from the thyroid to see, is the thyroid underworking, overworking? Like, is there an issue with the thyroid? Or are we looking in the wrong place. So if we look, and we keep in mind at the 10% rule, for every 1 degree in Fahrenheit drop below that normal, you can correlate that to a 10% decrease in your BMR or your basal metabolic rate. As you guys know, is your basal, your basal metabolic rate is just the number of calories that you need in a day to just function, to just live and breathe, to just lay in bed, not do anything, to just be a human, just lay in bed and doing nothing. That's how, that's your BMR. So one thing that you can look at is cold extremities. If you have very cold hands all the time, that could then point to, stalled progress. Now, I know a lot of you are probably like, oh my goodness, like my hands are cold. Do I have an issue? It needs to be something to where this is a common occurrence, like every single day kind of thing, before that you can relate it to, like, is this an issue or is this not an issue? But that is a very good, like, step one indicator. Like, you know what? My toes and my fingers are just always freezing cold, even when it's 90 degrees outside, right? Like my hands are still kind of cold, right? So if you look at this, you're always cold. You aren't burning fat. You're essentially storing it. Your body is in survival mode at that point. And so if we look at another check that you can do, the post-meal heat check. So is your food that you're eating stoking that metabolic fire in an essence, right? So the goal is your temp should rise a half a degree within 45 minutes of eating. So what you could do, is take your temperature before the meal, eat the meal, 45 minutes after that last bite, check your temp again and see if it's risen a half a degree. And so we want to look at, if this rise in the heat, does occur. Again, it confirms that the thyroid and your gut are converting the calories that you just ate into energy. And if it's not, then you have an issue that you need to start looking into. Could be that your thyroid is down regulated. It could be an issue in your gut to where you aren't absorbing the food as properly as you could be. It could be digestive issues. I mean, again, it could be a number of things, but typically this points toward you could have a thyroid issue, and that's kind of the first thing that you need to check. Just to kind of see if that truly is the issue. And then so if you do the test and it's not where it needs to be, then you need to look at again, what is putting out this fire, what is not pushing that number up. So the biggest one is under eating. I mean, if low fuel forces the body to lower its operating temp to survive, I mean that's just kind of common sense, right? If you don't put enough fuel in, you're not going to get a big high output, right? And again, if you kind of look at all of these, under eating, overtraining, sleep loss, all of these are stressors, right? So overtraining, too much cardio is going to spike up cortisol, which can act as a metabolic break. That is a stressor. If we look at sleep loss, again, a stressor. Poor rest disrupts your circadian rhythm, crashing that morning baseline. And then if your circadian rhythm is off, well, your hormone production during the night is going to be altered as well too. And then that's just kind of have a downstream effect, going on into the day. Especially if you're not recovering well, and then you're overtraining, and then you're under eating. That's kind of the double whammy. A lot of people actually fall into this category. They're under eating, trying to lose the body fat. They're doing way too much in the gym, and then they're not sleeping as well. So they're kind of getting hit from all three sides, essentially. So again, you have to keep in mind that this is something that you should test initially. Now, if you do this test right, and then your temp is low, my next suggestion would be to get some blood work done. Check your TSH, your free T, your free T3, or your free T4, and get a lipid panel to confirm that that is the issue. I've seen this plenty of times on a blood work. I mean, it's probably more common than you think. And then again, next week on our weekly lecture, we're going to talk about blood work and the quote unquote normal ranges that these tests say that you should be in, right? There has been several times to where I would have a client, run these tests, and it comes back all normal, right? And they're like, why is this normal? Our temperature isn't where it needs to be. Well, if we look at it, these ranges for these blood work panels are very broad, and it also takes into account the unhealthy population, right? Like these blood panel ranges are not for the perfect specimen human in tip-top shape, right? This is for the average human, which we all know the average human, is not in the best shape physically. So again, if you get this, these tests done and it still says that everything is quote unquote normal, this is where you have to look at the actual numbers and compare it to the other ones, just to be sure that hey, these these numbers may be normal, but the ratios are off. And I'll show you guys an example next week in our call, specifically talking about TSH and lipid profiles when it is concerning cholesterol. That is a great example as well too. So overall, what you should want to see is a stable body temp, a stable, gentle, gradual rise during the day, and that would equate to a healthy metabolism. Now, if you guys, wanted to, grab your thermometer, try this on your own. That's definitely something that you can do. But I will say, don't try this and have a day or two of you doing this, and your temperature is just all across the board, and you get freaked out of like, why am I taking this test and the numbers are all across the board. This needs to be done in a state to where it's a normal week for you. Stressors are low. It needs to be the most stable environment that you can be in, because I have had individuals do this test before, and then they go and they do the test. It points toward, a thyroid issue. We go get the thyroid test done, and their numbers are actually great. And then, a week or two later, they relay to me, oh, this week has been the first week in a long time that has been stress free. I'm like, okay, was the week that you done the temp check and the blood work, was that a very stressful week? Oh yeah, my job was awful. The kids were sick. Low sleep, low food. I'm like, okay, well, this kind of checks out why that, why we were seeing, what we were seeing, during that time as well too. So, um, again, this is just another test variants that you can do. Just kind of get a general idea if something is going wrong. This could kind of be kind of the same thing as, like, I have everybody check their fasted glucose every week as well too, to kind of give us a slight window into how your insulin resistance is shifting. Is it good, or is it kind of getting a bit bad? That's kind of like doing the temp check, right? Because you're actually, sticking the thermometer in your mouth, you're pricking your finger, right, getting the blood. The next step for the blood glucose is to get a HOMA IR test. It's a test that you can have run, and that for sure points to if you have insulin resistance. So again, that's kind of the same thing as getting the thermometer, testing the temperatures, and then if there's an issue there, go get the blood work done, check your thyroid out, and see if that's kind of having some problems. So um, I thought this was something that you guys might be interested in. So if you have a thermometer, give it a shot. Just kind of see how it goes. Keep in mind that you do have to have that by the bedside as soon as you wake up in the morning. Have it. I mean, the times that I've done it, I've had my phone on the nightstand, ready for the alarm to go off, and I just had the thermometer sitting on top of the phone. So as soon as I roll over, I see it. I'm like, all right, let me just check it and see. And that's kind of how I've done it. So. Anybody got any questions about that? All that make good sense? No sense at all? Any questions?
How many data points would you want to have to be able to say whether or not there's a problem with metabolism or whichever, like a week's worth or
No.
several
If
days?
it's just like a normal day, for you, I would do one. Obviously, waking up, first thing that morning, check that, and then I would do at least the first two meals of the day. Do that, temp check before the meal. Eat your meal thoroughly after the last bite. Set a timer on your phone for 45 minutes. Check it again, and then for meal two, I do the same thing. Um, it would be kind of tedious, kind of aggravating. I would assume to do it a full 7 days, but to get a general idea, I would say at least those three data points. Just first thing in the morning before meal. Well, not I guess five data points. First thing in the morning before meal one, 45 minutes after the last bite of meal one, and then the same for meal two. Just to give you a general idea, it's kind of like the same. If I suspect somebody is having a postprandial glucose response with their food. Like I've had some people who will take, their blood glucometer, with them everywhere that day. Like they'll take their blood glucose first thing that morning. They'll write that number down. And then they'll check their blood glucose right before the meal, and then 90 to 120 minutes after the last bite, which is your postprandial reading. And I'll have them do that for first thing in the morning, fasted as you guys do, and then do that sequence before the meal, and then 90 to 120 minutes after the meal for all the meals during the day. And we can kind of see that as well too, like for meal one, for instance, like if your glucose is at 100, right? And then 90 to 120 minutes later, it's 180, right? Like, why is this not coming back down? Like, why did it go up so high and why is it staying elevated, right? But meal two was different food combinations. It was at 120 and it come back down to 90, right? So you can kind of see a pattern across the day. And that's just, again, just speaking in, that blood glucose test. But for your point, that 5 test.